So welcome to Bright Spots in Healthcare, another live episode from Health. Today I am joined by Dr. Carolyn Jasik. She is the Associate Chief Clinical Officer at Verily, which is an Alphabet company, and she is helping lead precision health innovation that combines AI and data science and clinical expertise. And we're going to have a really good conversation to learn about some of the cutting edge things that are happening from one of the most innovative, smart tech companies in our industry. So welcome to the show, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to learn. Let's just, for folks that may not know exactly what Verily does, just to make sure we get a level set, give a little bit of an update on who Verily is, how you're born out of Alphabet, what you do, and then we're going to get into precision health in a moment.
Yeah, so Verily was incubated out of Google, now Alphabet, several years ago, and we've had a few different seasons, as many moonshot companies do. Started out mostly focused on innovation around devices, then spent some time on research, and I would say this is pretty much season 3 for the company, and really focusing now on precision health and leveraging AI for both direct clinical care and then also for solving difficult problems within research. And this pivot happened about 2 years ago.
All right, let's start there then. Let's define what precision health is and what does it really mean as an enabler to deliver better, both personalized care and scalable care.
Yeah, I'm laughing because that term is definitely tossed around a lot at this meeting in addition to AI. So it's a good question to ask, what do you really mean by it? I think at the end of the day, for me, I'm a behavioral science expert. I think a lot about behavior change, and I think precision health for me and for Verily as well is about, are you getting a person the right treatment and the right intervention at the right time? And the benefit of technology is that we can be in someone's pocket and be with them 365, 24/7. And that allows us to be as precise as time allows, right? If we're with them and we're seeing what they're doing with their phone, what they're inputting with their data, we have an opportunity to deliver interventions in a much more precise way.
Okay, so let's get into that solution that you just alluded to so we could really get in our mind's eye what that is. And then we'll get into some of the launching of Verily Me and some of the other questions I have prepared. So when you're talking about that and that quick example of how you could help with precision health, let's humanize it. Give me an example of how it's all working. Pretend it's me or whatever persona you want to use.
Sure. I mean, I think in some ways it goes back to when I was in clinical practice. So I was when I was practicing, was a pediatrician for high-risk teenagers, and kids would come into my clinic and have a lot of difficult behavioral problems to solve, and I would have 15 minutes. And so ask yourself, what are the odds that the 15 minutes that you happen to be pushed into a doctor's office with all the hustle and bustle, that your mind is going to be open to really change your life around an important and intimate part of your history, of your family? The odds are it isn't. And so what I realized in that experience is we need to get out of the hospital. We need to get into people's communities, into their homes, to really be able to help them. And that's really the concept here. And a specific example would be, let's say my area is cardiometabolic disease. Someone's at home. They're struggling with their new diabetes diagnosis. They've just come home with their new package of diabetes supplies. They're feeling overwhelmed. They'd like to talk to their doctor, but it's after hours. They may not get the answer back from my chart. They can pick up a phone and engage with a coach right then and right there. Now, in the past, that coach may or may not be working because it could be business hours, right? But now with the advantage of AI, we can now have an AI coach be interacting with that person right then, right there in that moment. And that's precision health.
Okay, so the coach is a human or an AI agent?
Well, current state, it's both. So as we envision Verily Me, we'll get to that in terms of what it is and how it works, is it starts with the AI coach. So the AI coach might answer a quick question. Let's say it's an easy question, like, how does someone do an injection, or what is insulin? The AI coach can answer some of those basic questions. But if it's a question about, how do I administer my insulin, or why am I on this dose, that might get filed for a queue for a human to come up later to answer the question.
So very, very similar to a sophisticated customer service operation where we're practicing at the top of our license. We got the AI agent handling basic questions to provide your human coaches a little bit more scale. And then we escalate more personalized, clinical-based questions over to the coach.
Oh, I think that's an excellent description. Yeah, of how it works. Yeah.
All right. So that's great. And so let's talk now, because I know you guys just announced Verily Me, and let's put it into the sort of Verily ecosystem. So the problem you're solving for consumers and clinicians, at least for consumers, you're bringing clinical support to the home.
Mm-hmm.
And for clinicians, let's talk about how it benefits them and how does this product fit into Verily's just broader ecosystem.
Right. So it might be good to take a couple steps back and talk about the broader Verily ecosystem. So we have a platform now in market announced last week called Verily Pre, which is the platform that powers everything. It brings in healthcare data, processes it. It's kind of the boring bit that's really the required part, actually kind of the hardest problem to solve, is how do we harmonize all that data in one place? And then upon that, we have 3 different possible solutions and ways that people can work with us. One is research, which we're not talking about today. The second is Verily Me, which is a consumer application. And the third is direct clinical care, which is LightPath. So Verily Me, the use case that we have out in market as of this week is healthcare data. So the healthcare consumer can connect their healthcare data from a health information exchange and ask important questions about that data coming in. So I actually downloaded it over the weekend, and what I did is I recently had a milestone birthday, I will say. Yes, I turned 30, haha. And with that milestone birthday...
She looks great, everyone.
Exactly, right, yes. With that milestone birthday came some required vaccines that are important for me. So I opened up my Verily Me app, I loaded in my records, and I said anything I need to know about vaccines at my age. And Verily Me was able to look at my vaccines and say, okay, based on what you have, you're good with your Tdap, you're not so good with your shingles. You need to think about getting... People your age need to get a shingles vaccine.
That's a brutal one.
Okay. Looks like we share maybe a milestone birthday. It knocked my husband out for 3 days, actually, the shingles. So the TLDR on that is I've not gotten it yet. But anyway, so that interaction with the healthcare record and being able to have access to it, we feel is really important. Anyone can access their medical record through MyChart, but you don't really have a way to engage with it. You don't have a way to ask questions about your record. And that really felt like the step one for us. The third part of what we have in market is LightPath, which is clinical care. And are you saying
LifePath or LightPath?
LightPath. LightPath.
Okay. Yep.
And LightPath is an enterprise B2B solution for payers and employers to partner with us on that clinical care scenario that I talked about around diabetes. And that would be available to people that have it as a covered benefit through their employer. But the free available consumer app is the healthcare data piece that I described.
Yeah, so let's talk about Verily Me for a second. What's the business model there, if there is one, and what's the strategic impotence for launching a direct-to-consumer product like that?
Yeah, so the strategic, I'll start with the strategic impetus for it. I think we both share a background in digital health, and I would imagine you know how hard it is to engage the healthcare consumer in these solutions. And as I reflect on my time at Omada, where I was chief medical officer, designing the intervention was in many ways not the hardest part. The hardest part at the end, as we started to scale and grow the business, was helping people sign up, honestly. And, getting into double digits even at times was hard with certain populations. And it became a really big question. How do you engage the healthcare consumer? What does a healthcare consumer want from these applications? And what I'm excited about Verily Me for is we're really taking a direct-to-consumer approach and thinking the strategy here is let's just engage the healthcare consumer and let's hit with multiple different hypotheses. Let's start with their healthcare data. Does the healthcare consumer want to engage with their data? And then let's ask another question. Maybe an advice agent. Maybe the healthcare consumer wants to engage with other healthcare consumers around particular topics. And then once we're able to solve that problem, and it'll be multifaceted, I believe, and get a lot of people on our platform, then the way that we get to a business model is selling solutions on top of that. Perhaps, a health system or a payer would want to partner with us on Verily Me to engage with their member population. And that member population would use our applications of Verily Me. And then we would engage with them on surveying that population, maybe navigating them to benefits that are important to them, and that kind of model. But step one is cracking this nut of how do we engage the healthcare consumer? Because I think a lot of companies start backwards. They sell a B2B solution based on a hypothesis, and then they're little pants down on the engagement piece.
Right.
We're trying to crack the engagement piece first.
Right. That's kind of Noom. That's what Noom did, right? They went out for direct consumer first, right?
I think so. Yeah, in some ways. And I think Noom is a really great model because now they are, they have a great, strong consumer brand. They have a lot of downloads, and now they can go to the B2B business. They really solved, okay, what does the healthcare consumer want from this? Now they also, times have changed. We now have GLPs, so that's been a wrinkle, I think, for their process. I'm sure they'll say you've heard about GLPs. I think, what are we at? 12 minutes before we mentioned GLPs. I think that's a record probably for me. Yeah. And I really admire what Noom did. I mean, I remember early days at Omada, we were selling against Noom B2B, and they kind of stepped back and really invested in that direct-to-consumer brand. And I think that's an inspiration for all of us to just not forget the consumer and what we're doing.
And you're being powered by, arguably the most powerful consumer brand in our lifetime behind you. So is there some brain gain from that? Can you talk a little bit about this strategy about trying to, because you're kind of boiling the ocean, but if anyone could pull it off, it could be an alphabet company. So talk to me a little bit about the overall strategy and why we think this Verily Me strategy is going to be successful.
I love that question because it feels a little personal to me because it gets to why I joined Verily personally, which is I have really struggled with the incremental and smallness of how we've approached innovation in digital health. And it's not anyone's fault, really. It's more about how we're funded and how we grow. We start with seed funding. It's a very modest investment, and you really can only solve one problem at a time and then build up, right, to doing something big. And you were part of an amazing success story. I was part of an amazing success story doing that. But it's very incremental, and it takes a long time. What I love about being part of an alphabet company is the sort of dream big moonshot component to it, where if you put a substantial amount of resources and a very, very sophisticated brain trust behind a problem, you have just a bigger potential for impact. Now it comes with downsides. It's a complex organization. There's lots of smart people at Verily with lots of opinions. And so sorting through that can be a little bit more complex, but the grandness of the vision and the resourcing, we have hundreds of engineers working on this problem. We have access to a parent company with amazing intellectual capital and support. And so it just gives you the ability to dream big. And that's why it honestly took me 8 minutes to explain our products, because we're able to do so many things at one time, which is really...
So I love what you said about how we innovate and increment and just too slow and too small. And we need to figure out ways, not just if you're part of Alphabet, but all of our organizations, and hopefully if the VCs and PEs listening, we got to dream big and we got to create pragmatic, but approaches to moonshots. I think we got to be going big or go home. And I love what you said about that. I just want to summarize the 3 product areas. So you have the research, which we didn't get into.
That just to deposit it with the podcast, that's called the lifelong study.
Okay, great. And then we can read about that on your website. We've got Verily Me. We're going to continue talking about that. And then we've got LightPath, which is your B2B play, which can fit in B2B care, which is similar to past organizations we may have
in common. Yes, okay. I think so. Yeah. And, obviously with a twist.
Of course. I'm sure there's differentiation. I don't mean to call it all vanilla.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And, but yeah, I mean, I think what makes the whole thing special is that it all goes together. And there are companies working on one of these parts. There are data companies. There are D2C engagement companies that monetize via ads or whatever else, which we aren't going to do. And then there's care companies and there's research companies. The beauty of all all this is it goes together.
Okay, let's go back to Verily Me, and I'm going to ask you a couple of other questions before we close up here. What is the marketing approach to driving meaningful engagement, and then how are you guys defining like what's meaningful engagement? So let's fast forward a year from now. We're sitting back here together because you had such a fun time with me, and we're talking about the achievement that you guys had around Verily Me. What success look like, and how are we going to get there?
Well, number one, success is what have we learned, I think. And success, on a metric basis, it would be downloads and, monthly active users, like any kind of metric that people use. But I think the success for me is what have we learned about the healthcare consumer and what they want to do in an application like this. Right now, we're working the hypothesis around data access and data engagement. I think that will be true for a certain portion of the population. Some people are very quantitatively based. Already people are downloading it, and there's a lot of comments on Twitter about, we have a very data engaged industry and colleagues. And so I think that's one segment of the population. And so we're going to learn a lot about how people want to engage with their health record. I do, personally think we will need a few other use cases to engage different kinds of users. Sure. I think we're going to need to explore social engagement within the platform. I think we're going to need to explore how people want to ask questions about their actual health versus their health record, current questions, feeling, how am I feeling today? And getting advice on that. So success, to sum it up, I would say success would be just the typical metrics plus a lot of new knowledge that we can, roll forward.
When we're talking about downloads and participation, and I don't know if you used the word participation or if I am, or you said enrolled, I can't remember.
Downloads and then monthly active users.
Yeah, active users participation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there a goal that you guys have? And the user doesn't have to pay at all, right? Or is it a freemium model?
No, it's free. It's free to the user.
It's free, not even a freemium.
No. Yeah. And actually we, I should have mentioned that on the back end of downloading the records, we are actually, putting forward licensed nurses that are reviewing people's records to give them advice on gaps in care. That's another piece I should have mentioned, actually. That's a big part of the application. So when the record comes down, you access your record, you can ask questions. But another piece that Verily is offering is on the back end, a nurse is reviewing your records and saying, hey, you're missing this piece or that piece. So when I downloaded it, it said, hey, you're missing, I think I hadn't gotten my A1C this year. And so it said, you're missing your A1C. So we're also offering that to the world for free to see how that works. Great.
So my wife was recently in the hospital, and I remember when we were in the ED and she was getting a lot of tests, we were getting the MyChart results before like a doctor came to talk to us. And of course, I'm taking a look at them and I'm sending them in screenshots to my friends who are doctors. If I had Verily Me, would Verily Me, or my wife would need Verily Me, would we be getting insights around that blood work as it came into MyChart?
So current state, no, because we don't pull the records that frequently. I think in the future we will. Remember, we're beta testing right now.
Right. And I can't, as a user, do a manual refresh or anything like that.
Not current state, but again, future state. But what you could do is you could go into the chat and say, if somebody has a lab test like this, what does that mean for a person?
Right.
And I will mention that what is helpful about that, actually, which is another nice thing about Verily Me, is there's a lot of people out there putting a lot of personal health information into Gemini, into Chat GPT, even into open evidence. Those are not clinical spaces. That's not a HIPAA protected space. When you ask those questions in Verily Me about your wife, about her testing, that's protected. So that's an advantage as well. And that's just side point, that's a very deeply personal topic to me, because I had a friend that found out she had leukemia in the waiting room of an ER. She got her labs on MyChart and she texted me and said, what is an hour rod? And I said, you have leukemia. And no one had come out and talked to her. No one had, said anything about it.
Jeez.
And it was just not a great patient experience.
Yeah. That sounds horrifying.
And I think that's what I mean, on a personal note, that's what I'm really trying to solve is, do people feel seen? Do they feel cared for? Do they feel understood by the healthcare system? I think broadly, no. And I think that AI and applications like we're developing will solve that, because at the other side, at the human side of precision health, is someone feeling seen and known and cared for, right? Even if it is by an AI bot, right? Yeah.
And are you, as far as the AI and the technology behind it, is it a Google-driven AI engine? I've heard about Violet. Is that what? Is that
Yep.
are you integrating Violet?
Well, that seems to be the popular thing to anthropomorphize your AI agent. So ours is named Violet. I quite like the name, actually. So Violet is kind of an amalgamation of the use cases that we've applied to our AI. Of course, it's driven by Google technology because we are an Alphabet company. But the persona that we've put on top is Violet. And over time, Violet, like any sort of companion to the care team, will be absorbing more and more scope over time. So currently, Violet's able to answer questions about your record. Violet is able to give you general education about healthcare. I dream and hope that someday Violet will be able to do some of the clinical work that clinicians do and decompress them. So Violet will, I guess this time next year, ask me what Violet can do.
I will. We'll have to do it. It's a date.
It's a date.
So, note to Caesar, you got to get my cough out of there. I'm just talking to my producer, not Adonis, but Caesar's going to edit this.
Caesar's the man with the editing button.
Yeah, Caesar's my editor. All right. I'm just going to silently count myself in because we're just about to close up. Okay, so to close things out, I have two final questions. One is there anything about Verily Me that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? Because I want to make sure we caught everything.
Yeah, I really missed the licensed people thing. Let me think. I think I covered it all, right? Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
And then let's talk about what you think. 'Cause I love how you're thinking about the future and you've got this great vision. So I know we talked about a year. What about 3 years? I know people want to say 10. I don't want to go that far out. I don't think anyone really could tell what's going to happen in 10 years. Our whole society is moving so fast with everything with technology. So digital health and precision medicine, what does it look like in 3 years?
Yeah, so I live in the inner Sunset in San Francisco, and Waymo, for whatever reason, tested in our neighborhood very early days. And so what I want for Verily, my personal hope and dream, is that we will look like Waymo did at about 5 years into the process. And I watched it literally out of my front window. It started with a person in the driver's seat in a regular car, and they were just taking data. Then the driver had an autonomous agent, but they still had their hand on the wheel. Then they started to sit in the passenger seat, and the car was driving. That went on for a few years too. And then now, of course, there's Waymos in my neighborhood driving without anyone in. So in 3 years, what I hope for is that Violet has more scope than just RCM and administrative and education. I want Violet to have scope about real care. I want Violet to be answering clinical questions that are meaningful to people about their health, that's informed. I think Violet's going to be better at that, actually, than doctors, because they can't review records fast enough, and there's no amount of clinical decision support that can, encapsulate a lifetime for someone like me at a milestone birthday, right? So I want Violet to be providing direct care in 3 years. And it's going to be messy from a regulatory standpoint. It's going to be hard from a institutional standpoint. But if in 3 years, Violet's just helping us build better, I'm going to be sad about that. Yeah.
It's great. I got to tell you, Wednesday morning interviews at Health are not usually recommended. I'm so glad we did this. I got
the sloppy seconds, I think, from our chief medical officer.
I so enjoyed this. This was great.
On the time, not the gig, but the time. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Jasik, thank you so much.
So fun to meet with you. Yeah.
So
I love your Vietnam example. It's just been making my mind work because it reminded me, I did this, early in my career, I did this what for overweight kids that was like medically sponsored. And it wasn't like a fat camp, but it was sort of like don't put that in the thing, please, not that word. So what we did is we had this camp and I had all these great ideas, and we had these perky people from Oakland Children going to this community center to do this camp for these kids. And about a week into the camp, parents loved the camp, everything. The director kind of walked over to me and he was like, "Hey, Carolyn, like, I'm feeling really awkward, but your staff is offending everybody. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, they're all young, blonde, white girls, and everybody at this center is, from the community, and it's not their culture. It's not their community. They're talking about the food in a way that's like not going well. And I said, we're pulling them out. And what I realized is the same information delivered by a community member to their own community resonated a lot more. So your example about the food is I was thinking, what if your friend was hosting the things and trying to educate, right, the community? It wouldn't have worked. It would only, or not your friend, the person you were reading about. It only worked because it was the mom sharing her idea with her friends, right?
That's right. Peer influence.
Yeah.
And could I just a quick background? I don't want to do this go long, but we were talking before we started recording about a story that has inspired bright spots in healthcare. Some of you may know it, some of you may not, where a research team led by a gentleman named Jerry Stern, and I'm not friends with me, went into Vietnam and reduced malnutrition with very few resources, but just did it through finding a bright spot and then having peer influence and having those peers influence each other. So that's what Carolyn's alluding to right now.
Yeah, I would love that. If you put that part in, it's fine. Please take the word fat out, because I would never describe a child that way. But it was transformative to me. And then and even better, when I moved on with my career, left the university, that camp kept going because the community felt ownership and felt connected to the intervention. And so it was like beauty, wonderful things all around. Well, thanks for doing this, and congrats. It's a wonderful next chapter for you after prior gigs.
Thank you very much. And
thank you.
For all of you listening, we appreciate you tuning in. We don't take the time that you spend with us lightly. We hope you use the ideas and everything that Carolyn just said to apply to your thinking and your strategy around innovation. Remember, everyone, we do this show for you. This is your Bright Spots in Healthcare podcast.